What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the intern. Today's video is who has increased their value over the offseason. Now, this is going to be an interesting one. We're going to be looking at some players that really just kind of grew, maybe some free agency signings happened and it kind of excelled their role a little bit. Maybe it's, a trade that happened that has excelled their role. Maybe it's just overall what the team has plans for them. And there's going to be a lot of interesting scenarios to really talk about. Kind of excited about this one because this is technically my personal opinion, but I think a lot of people also agree with most of these. But let's just get started with, make sure to join the community over at Fantasy Sports Advice Network. You can download the app, go.com, look at it on the web. You can join over the basketball community there where you have my tools. You can look at my top 151 for points redraft leagues, and then for Dynasty, my top 303. Go make sure over there, if you want to go pro, you have to go see those ranks. If you want to see those ranks, you have to go pro. You can use the link in the description to go check that out. But yeah, let's just get started. I think first we're going to be talking about is Jalen Johnson, because Jalen Johnson is kind of an interesting one. When you really think about Jalen Johnson, his kind of development was last year. I don't think that you can fully say that this offseason was something that Jalen Johnson kind of grew. You would look more probably into Jalen Johnson last season, kind of coming from a no ADP at all to kind of like 300 ADP, and then all of a sudden rising to the top 50s-ish. That's probably a huge jump, and I think it was because of last year they started realizing, you know what, Jalen Johnson is a forward that makes a lot of sense to play. We're going to keep giving him more minutes. Maybe that was the addition of Quinn Snyder really controlling this team, looking at this team. It's just Jalen Johnson was somebody that looked well. He had Trae Young by his side. He had a forward that was athletic, had great steal numbers, could show off in every type of performance there was, every stat there was. This offseason, though, it's kind of interesting. When you really look at the Atlanta Hawks roster right now, Trae Young looks like the piece that's probably going to be traded next. And then you look at their other players. Zachary coming in as the number one pick. You look at maybe Onyeka Okongwu as this future center. You can look at somebody else we'll talk about probably later in this video. Jalen Johnson is the one person that they said is untradeable. And that's the biggest thing for me. Jalen Johnson being called untradeable means that this is the guy for the Hawks moving forward. I don't think a lot of people realized Jalen Johnson was going to be this untouchable guy probably last season. And it's kind of interesting to me to see how the Atlanta Hawks are going to, do they trade Trae? Do they trade Trae? What a kind of sentence and words to keep going. Do they trade Trae? Jalen Johnson is the one piece that I just keep going back and I keep realizing he's going to be there for the long run, and it's only positive no matter what they do. You're either, signed with Trae Young there, which we saw what Trae Young helped with John Collins when it came to his lob threat ability. We saw maybe Trae Young's gone, and now Jalen Johnson's by himself and really controlling this team. Either way, it's going to be good for Jalen Johnson. Up next, we have Josh Giddey. This one's more of a sense of a trade, for example. Going to the Chicago Bulls is going to be interesting. One of the biggest things that I kind of keep talking about on this channel and other channels as well, just overall, is Josh Giddey going from the Oklahoma State Thunder, who could not play him in the playoffs only for a couple of minutes, going to the Chicago Bulls helps his kind of stock a lot. And it's interesting to talk about the Bulls because, again, just like the Atlanta Hawks, just like a lot of teams on this kind of video, they're in this weird area, this gray area that I always talk about, which is you're not winning. Maybe you're the 6th seed. I would say it's probably anywhere from 5th to 10th seed. You're not winning enough. You're probably getting bounced out the first round. And the problem is you're not getting a bad enough pick to really develop your talent. Now, this sometimes doesn't work with, maybe the Miami Heat. Maybe some other players get really lucky on certain teams and something grows like that. But Josh Giddey is kind of, going on the Chicago Bulls, who tried to trade Zach LaVine, tried to trade Nikola Vucevic, but they look like they're negative on their trade value. So right now, it looks like they're going to run it back, which for Josh Giddey, in my opinion, the reason why they're trading, oh my gosh, the reason why they're trying to trade for him is because, one, he can play make. And I think that was a big thing that the Chicago Bulls was missing with Lonzo Ball last year, was They needed a playmaker. Kobe White excelled at it, and that's when you started to see him doing pretty decent at the end when Kobe White was going crazy. Josh Giddey here is somebody that's going to be able to play make. And two, he fits a rebuild. I mean, at 21 years old, he has talent that you can grow and you can keep going into, he's 21. And to put this in perspective, who was it the other day that I was talking about? There's somebody else that was 20 years old that is coming out as a rookie this year. Was it Reed Shepherd? I think it was Reed Shepherd. Isn't that insane to really talk about that? So Josh Giddey is going to be an interesting one for me, and I'm kind of excited to see how well he's going to be moving on into the season. Up next, we have Jonathan Kuminga. For me, Jonathan Kuminga is another one that I have to say, I do believe, truthfully, that Jonathan Kuminga is in a very great scenario right now if you're an owner of Jonathan Kuminga. Somebody that is kind of in the sense of he could be traded and go to the Jazz, for example, even though that's not going to happen unless it happens at a trade deadline. He could go to the Jazz. And if he goes to the Jazz, well, he's going to be a star there. Could go to the Heat and maybe a Jimmy Butler trade. He's going to be the star there. Not maybe the star, but a star there. No matter where he's going to go, a team's going to want him for his athletic ability being a star. And with that in mind, let's say he doesn't get traded. Okay, well, the Warriors have already made it very clear that he is going to be the future for them with some other players on their team. For me, that sounds like Kuminga's in a pretty good spot where if he doesn't get traded, this is the guy for them. If he does get traded, it's probably going to be for some all-star, and he's going to be the future of some team, whatever it might be. I would be excited if I was a Jonathan Kuminga owner because this is a guy who can do a lot on the ball, and every athletic wing is going to look nasty when it comes to maybe some efficiency, maybe rebounding, whatever it might be, he's going to be nice. Up next, we have Kobe White. Kind of talked about this a little bit earlier. Kobe White was somebody that kind of really showed in the offseason, but they made it very clear that this, or not the offseason, last year at the end of the season, almost winning most improved player, but then he really showed with this offseason that there's a really only untouchable player on the Chicago Bulls. So with that in mind, again, like how, not Jonathan Kuminga, who was it earlier? Jalen Johnson. He's going to be a future guy for them. I think with a Josh Giddey and being that combo guard that he did coming out of North Carolina, Kobe White is going to be in a role to excel. Yes, maybe next season if Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic are back and Kobe White is there with Josh Giddey, maybe he doesn't have the scoring ability that he had before. Maybe he doesn't have the passing ability that Josh Giddey might take up. And I think that's going to be okay because at the end of the day, the Chicago Bulls' goal is to rebuild. They're going to go away with a Zach LaVine. They're going to go away with a Nikola Vucevic. You're going to have Kobe White and Josh Giddey next to each other, and I would really like that duo. Look what Josh Giddey did with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Now, I'm not saying, I need to say this, I'm not saying Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is only pride because of Josh Giddey. I'm saying that Kobe White and Josh Giddey is going to fit well with each other, just how Shai and Josh Giddey fit well with each other, where they can work off each other. It's going to be the same way here. Up next, we have Cam Thomas, the New York Nets. The Brooklyn Nets, which is technically in New York, is officially in the rebuilding stage, and I think works out perfect. And Cam Thomas is probably going to be one of the star players when it comes to this rebuilding era. Now, is he going to be a player that the New York Brooklyn Nets are going to hold on for a while? I don't think so. I don't think that's the case. But when you look at Cam Thomas for the next 2 to 3 years, Cam Thomas is a player that, and I might just be a hater. I feel like I've always been this hater of Cam Thomas, and I kind of hate it because I feel like coming out of LSU, he was very nasty when it comes to scoring the ball and proved it in the Summer League, and then didn't really get his chance, and we always talked about, well, only if he got his chance. I feel like this year is going to be his chance, and he's going to show out, but defensively, he's not going to be good. If you're not in 9-cat leagues, then you probably want Cam Thomas. If you're in a 9-cat league, might want to get some other options, but Cam Thomas is going to be someone that can pass the ball, someone that can, score the ball, and I think it's going to be well going into the ball for this new Brooklyn Nets team. The Brooklyn Nets are not looking to win this season. They're looking to develop players. They're looking to boost players' trade values. They're looking to really be the worst team and get a great pick entering this next offseason. With that in mind, Cam Thomas is an excellent player to really help your goal of that. Up next, we have Brandon Podziemski. The thing about Brandon Podziemski is, again, he's going to be the future. He clearly made it when the whole Lauri Markkanen situation is happening, that the Warriors believe this is their guy moving forward at the guard position. Kuminga's probably the guy, but I would have to say Podziemski's right up there with him. And I think that they prove that they love Podziemski with the shooting guard being confirmed to be the starting shooting guard, showing that he's going to have a way bigger role. Telling Klay Thompson, you're not going to start next season, Podziemski's going to over you to make him go to the Mavs. That's pretty ballsy, to say the least, for the Warriors to say that to Klay Thompson. So Podziemski here, to me, with them rumored to give him 8 to 10 threes a game, which is just insane to say out loud, I'm excited to see what Podziemski does. I think he's that one player that out of this list is all around is going to be nice. I think he's going to be the guy for the Warriors moving forward. And I don't think we see a trade for him, truthfully. I think he works well with a Steph Curry. I think he works well with a Kuminga, works well with a Draymond. That's the thing with Podziemski that I feel better to say than Kuminga. And I think Podziemski is going to be a team that, or even if they would trade him, a lot of teams know his worth and that they would 100% have Podziemski moving forward be an excellent player for him. And last but certainly not least, Dyson Daniels is here. I kind of said it when it was Jalen Johnson that we'll talk about someone later. This is the someone here. Dyson Daniels was getting traded to the Atlanta Hawks in a somewhat looked like a rebuilding trade. Usually these rebuild trades have a filler contract, which was Larry Nance Jr., young player, Dyson Daniels, and some picks for a star. They had that, even though they're trying to compete. So with that in mind, I feel like Dyson Daniels was used in that trade because I do believe that Dyson Daniels could be somewhat filling of a DeJounte Murray role. Dyson Daniels, to me, is a defensive player that's super tall, that can pass, that can do a little bit of things. Maybe not going to score as much as DeJounte Murray. I think DeJounte Murray is probably going to be a better player than him overall, but I do believe that when you look at some of his rankings, some of his just where people put him on places, I think he's higher now than most people would say before the season. He was barely playing for the Pelicans. Let's be honest here. He played at the beginning of the season when CJ McCollum was out. CJ McCollum comes back. Some other players come back. Dyson Daniels isn't playing as much. I'm excited to see how Dyson Daniels do. I think he could be this excellent player that works well with a Trae Young being the defensive guy for him, even though that probably was supposed to happen with DeJounte Murray and it didn't. Dyson Daniels is going to be good overall. I think he's going to be great with a 9-cat league more than maybe a points, but he's going to be just somebody that is going to be able to excel, especially if the Atlanta Hawks look to rebuild. Other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. I will see you in the next one, and goodbye.